You are floating through space on a giant rock that circles a ball of fire next to a moon that moves the sea. And you don't believe in miracles? It's a quote of an unknown source. It's easy to get lost in the depths of contemplations about our shared existence. The Buddha is quoted to have taught that three things cannot be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. But the truth, that is what feels hidden at times. The truths about our existence and purpose, about human suffering, the horror that can be found alongside ecstasy and joy. These deeper considerations are in the fabric of our lives, and deeper answers seem to elude us. Well, H.G. Wells has a marvelous point of encouragement. We must not allow the clock and the calendar to blind us to the fact that each moment of life is a miracle and mystery. Time and space, both of which are used to define our world and give its parameters, are by no means simple concepts. We live within them, and now we can pinpoint where we are using tools that measure both to a degree. Even on my phone, I can find my sun there in Colorado. But it was not always so. It was not always measurable. Time and space were an early point of study in the field of analytical philosophy. Augustine presented the first philosophical argument for the reality of creation. He said that the knowledge of time depends on the knowledge of the movement of things, and therefore time cannot be where there are no creatures to measure its passing. Well, Einstein said much the same about matter in his later work. Science has advanced, but now we have even more questions. There is still that which remains immeasurable. Time and space are more than concepts of physics. Well, dictionary definitions of time: it's the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, and future, all regarded as a whole. What is space? Simply said, it is the dimension of height, depth, and width within which all things exist and must move. But of course there is more. Space is a continuous expanse or area which is free. If we're going to be talking using terms like endless and limitlessness, things that cannot be measured, are we now speaking of things that are outside of our realms? And yet we're connected to all of that. So how do we think of ourselves within this ever-expanding time-space continuum? I can only think to insert this verse from Psalm 8. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established, what are humans that you are mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? We, the limited, are placed on this earth in a specific time for a definite period in a rather conscribed space, but within what looks to be a universe of endless time and space. The writer of the Psalms encourages us, lift up your eyes on high and ask yourself, who has created these stars? Who leads forth their host by number, calling them all by name? What is this greatness of might and strength and power? Not one of them is missing, it says in Psalm 40. Oddly, when Jesus prays to his heavenly parent, speaking of those he loves, the ones given to him by the Father, he says, two, not one of them is missing. In the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, there is a display meant to help the attendee better imagine a concept of space-time continuum. And I'd like to read from the exhibition description before I describe the activity I witnessed and that inspired me. And I read, according to Einstein's theory of general relativity, 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time are woven together in the fabric of reality called space-time. Every object with mass bends space-time. I'm going to read that one again. Every object with mass bends space-time. This includes stars, planets, and even you. It may sound like science fiction, but this phenomenon was confirmed with photographic evidence taken by Sir Arthur Eddington during a solar eclipse on May 29, 1919. In this interactive museum installation about time-space, children run and twirl across a laser-lit grid on the floor in a darkened room, the Y and the X lines bending as the interactor moves. The child can see the impacts of their movement within the grid. And I watched as they crisscrossed, looking down and witnessing the power of their impact, but of course having no concept of the deeper lessons they were to learn about time and space. For the young ones, these concepts were too far beyond their comprehension to elicit any deep understanding other than how cool laser lights are and how powerful they themselves are. I could see how each of their paths impacted the others as they traversed the field. Well, they were more enamored with how they could squelch one another's line of movement. So those lessons were missed. But one child yelled, "Dad, look at me! Look at what I can do." He was saying, "See me, I am powerful." Well, there were lessons there for the parents. Of course, deeper lessons were unfolding about the time and space we share with our children. I watched as my son, having waited until all the little kids had gone, took his turn trying new movements to see if they elicited any different effects. He too twirled and spun, hopped and paused, all the while looking at the impacts of his movement. And I thought to myself, that grid is my heart. my life. Every twirl and step upon it that my son makes, every in and out of the grid movement is affecting the fibers of my being. Yes, that object bending space and time is the object of my love and bending me too. Yes, child, you are so cool and so impactful. You have no idea. So connected are we with our children, one with another. I turned to a mother whose son was dancing in the maze, and I said, "It is what they do all day, every day in our lives, our children, bending both space and time in our lives, dancing and tramping and skipping in our hearts, all day, every day. It is what it is to be a parent." And she said, "Yes, it is so true." Do we skip across the grid of life unaware? You bet we do. Bending time and space? Do we impact one another as we traverse? You bet we do. Is God's heart impacted as we live and move? Let's contemplate that it is so. Arthur C. Clarke, writer, said, two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe, or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. Of course, tonight we are more than contemplating that God is in our spheres and we are in God's. We are connecting in worship. What does it mean to be named beloved child of a Creator that Jesus says in our baptism we can now name as our parent? Do we, as the object of God's love, spin and twirl and dance in this space-time, continuing with God watching, who's chosen to be impacted and engages us in the grid? People, are we not given power to unleash it in the universe as we follow the way of Jesus, the way of love? I'm going to end with a quote from another unknown source, just as we began with one. Love is the one thing that transcends time and space, end quote. We will walk this life's path beyond the homes, churches, and communities we have shared into grids yet to be mapped, with others we have yet to meet, and we will contend with whatever is in store with love and faith held together. Amen.